Hi there, class. With this flipped lesson this week, we're going to be talking about an issue that seems to be always in the news. It's a kind of issue we could update every week with new content. We're talking about fake news. A lot of fake news out there, and it's important as journalism students to learn how to recognize it, learn how to refute it, learn how to deal with it, and how it affects the jobs we do as journalists. As I said, it seems to be new examples every couple of weeks. I've tried to refresh this as best as I can as well. Now, the idea of fake news, though, has been a long-standing problem. So when we talk about fake news, we can actually divide things in two eras. There is fake news BC and fake news AD. Of course, I'm talking about fake news before Clinton and fake news after Donald. But really, the problem predates any sort of issues we've seen with the last U.S. election. Certainly, that's going to inform what's going to happen in the current U.S. election that's coming up, even the last Canadian election. There have always been jokesters or people trying to distribute fake information in the past. Even dates back to the Roman Republic. Octavian built a campaign of disinformation against Mark Antony during a war for the Roman Republic. If we go back to the Gutenberg press, the French Revolution saw pamphlets appearing in Paris making up stories about the corrupt government. So in a way, it's not a new problem, but it has certainly gained attention in recent years. Why is that? Of course, it's the internet, just how much more easily stories can spread. Social media makes us all able to spread what we want. Media these days are not trusted gatekeepers spreading the gospel truth about issues as well. We each self-select the news we want to see and then choose to share the stories that resonate with us and with our friends. And what sort of stories were out there being shared, certainly in the last U.S. election? Well, here's an example right now. Did Pope Benedict actually shock the world during the U.S. election and endorse Donald Trump? No, but this is one of the most popular stories shared on Facebook. It's not just the United States. It's not something we should be comfortable with here in Canada. During the Quebec mosque shootings a couple of years ago, number of fake stories were shared widely, identifying the shooters either as Syrian refugees or white supremacists. Even last year, around the time, all those stories of Justin Trudeau in blackface, when that was out making the news, this photo also went around. If you don't recognize this man, this is former Prime Minister Stephen Harper wearing a traditional Indigenous headdress. Many people sharing this, accusing him of being racist, dressing up as a chief. How is he not any better than what Trudeau did in blackface? Let's not go there. Those were the thoughts on this, and it was all completely false. This was actually a very highly prestigious indigenous ceremony he took part in. He was cited for his work and made an honorary chief. This is a great honor that this is given. This honor is given to people. This was given to Prince Charles, Pope Don Paul, including some guy named Justin Trudeau as well. So this is not a political leader dressing up in the offensive way, like or appropriating anything. Not at all equivalent to Justin Trudeau and the blackface controversy there as well. Some disturbing thoughts here. Poll found in June that 90% of Canadians admit they have fallen for fake news. It actually makes us worse than Americans, 87% there. A lot of people are blaming Facebook, social media, later TV. Curious enough, Twitter finds out. Here's the list of common sources of fake news. You'll notice Twitter is not on that list as much. It doesn't mean Twitter is more trustworthy. It's just that 47% of the people who took the survey aren't on Twitter. Something important to keep in mind. Journalists love Twitter. The general public is not as engaged on Twitter as the rest of us. We have to keep that in mind. When we see things trending and going crazy on Facebook, it's not representative. Or sorry, when we see it goes crazy on Twitter, it's not representative of the wider world. Rising study found just 28% of Canadians trust Facebook and Twitter. That's less than oil companies, banks, telecommunication providers, and the news media. So this is a problem around the world. This is a study Oxford University did, found that 70 countries around the world they'd found evidence of social media manipulation campaigns, at least one political party or government agency using social media to shape the public's attitudes domestically. Now, 7 countries were using it to try to influence foreign politics. Anyone want to guess who those countries were? China, India, Iran, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. Those governments were using fake news campaigns to try to influence campaigns in other countries. Of course, Facebook is the platform of choice. This can be a very serious problem. A couple years ago in India, fake news stories were being spread on WhatsApp, and it actually led to people being killed. This is snippets of child being shared of people allegedly being child pedophiles. They weren't, but there were mobs that were going out and killing people, and this was being spread on WhatsApp. It led to the point that full-page newspaper ads were taken out trying to educate people about how to fight false information and question what they were seeing on WhatsApp. So right now, I want to do a brief exercise about quick judgment. I want to talk about the idea of mandatory voting. In last fall's federal election, the voter turnout in Canada was around 65%. That was about down from 2015 when it was 68%, but it's actually up from 2008 when it was just under 59% of Canadians. So only 2/3 of Canadians are casting a ballot. 1/3 staying home, not going out and vote. You'll see in a folder in this week's fake news lesson and under part 2, a PDF called Mandatory Voting. It includes these 3 articles that look at whether we should make voting mandatory. Before you read them, just take a gut check right now. Where do you stand? Mandatory voting, pro or con? You think it's a good idea? Then I want you to read these 3 and then pick one of them that you might share if you were going to share. If you were so inclined to share these on Twitter, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, whatever, which one of these 3 stories most closely aligns with your thoughts? There are no wrong answers, nothing wrong to do about it. What I'd like you to do is go and look into part 2. I've set up a quiz on Blackboard that lets you answer some of these questions. Again, this quiz will not be marked other than your participation in this course. I will be looking, those people who take part will get participation marks for doing this as well. Read these articles and then answer the quiz. There's only 3 questions there as well. What did you think beforehand? Which one would you share? And then there's an exercise I'd like you to do and then answer the 3rd question. So take a look at that, and then we'll come back later on and continue our discussion about fake news.